Welcome to the Beauty Amidst the Ashes podcast, featuring conversations and stories designed to equip, mobilize, and encourage the church and families to engage in adoption and caring for children who need families. I'm your host, Christensen. Today we have a fun segment sharing the story of Beauty Amidst the Ashes. This is actually our first podcast. This has all been a work in progress, and we're excited to bring this podcast finally to the table. If you're watching on YouTube, or maybe you're listening on Spotify or on iTunes. But we're really excited today to share the story of how our organization got started. Right here is Peggy Porter, and she serves as the development coordinator for our organization. Welcome, Peggy.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be a host on here and to just finally have this launched. It's just been super, super exciting to see this the planning go underway and just everything come together. I am the intern. I was started off as an intern over the summer last year, and then became development coordinator, and then now I'm a paid staff member, and I'm super thankful for that. And then another episode later on in the podcast, I will share a little bit about my foster care journey, my adoption story, and a little bit about why I do what I do and who I am. With us today too is our business manager, Diana Christensen, and she will be a guest today and possibly more, I'm sure, on the podcast. And she's going to tell us a little bit about her too.
Thanks, Peggy. It is exciting to be here today. And I am actually Carl's mom. Mm-hmm. And so I have a history with the organization that started really from the beginning. And my position now, and has been through most of the history of the organization, has been as the business manager. Also, I have a very personal connection to just the organization because of my personal story. And so I'm excited just to share a little bit about that today.
Yeah, for sure. And then with us too is Katie Van Sloane. She is our newly added board member, which we're super thankful to have her on staff. And also she's a very close friend of mine, has a personal passion for adoption and foster care and international adoption as well. And I'm just super thankful to have her hosting, and I'm sure she'll be back as a guest on several more episodes. But I'm just thankful that you're here, Katie, and can tell us a little bit about yourself too.
Aw, thank you so much, Peggy. Yeah, I'm so excited to be here. I've actually helped volunteer at Hope for 2 years now, and I have just fallen in love with Beauty Amidst the Ashes and all that they do and represent and what you guys do. So I feel really honored to be here. I'm also a student at Iowa State, and yeah, I'm super excited that you guys invited me just to come here and be at this table, for sure. Okay, so to get this cracking, Carl, when did the vision of Beauty Amidst the Ashes start?
Well, I feel like that's like a loaded question.
Yeah.
So I have to say, really, the vision for Beauty Amidst the Ashes really just stemmed from my story. Mm-hmm. My birth mom got pregnant when she was 15 years old, decided to give me up for adoption, made that decision to place me for adoption when I was 3 days old. Backtrack a little bit. While I was in the hospital with her, my grandparents actually prayed that I'd be called into full-time missions and ministry, and that I would live my life for the Lord. Mm-hmm. And they prayed Isaiah 61 over me, which the whole beauty from ashes, God will give them beauty from ashes, is actually from that scripture.
Wow, so that's how you got the name.
So that's how we got the name, Beauty Amidst the Ashes. But growing up adopted, I always had a heart for adoption, and just knowing that there's so many children in the world that don't have what I had in the love of a family. And just having that heart for the gospel and wanting to share the gospel with others, and seeing that parallel of how God adopted me into his family. And now he asks us to do the same in the lives of children. So I've always had that passion, knowing that there was children growing up without the love of a family, and just that passion to share the gospel of a loving God who adopted us. Fast forward, I served with an amazing organization called Youth with a Mission, YWAM.
Oh, yeah.
And I actually served with them as an outreach leader. So I was leading outreaches all over the world, working with a lot of children who didn't grow up without families and were orphans, and really just saw that need there, and God just began stirring my heart that I needed to take this passion that was growing inside of me and run with it, and really advocate and do something with that. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. That's the short version of it, but yeah.
Wow, that's beautiful. I think it's so cool how when you have like a passion in your life, like I think that's a lot of times where God puts your calling.
Yeah.
So that's so cool.
And
how
it's
you just
awesome
use
too.
that.
I mean, there's a verse in the Bible. It says Jeremiah 1:5. It says, "Before I formed you in the womb, I knew all about you, and I had holy plans for you." And here is an amazing woman who got pregnant with me at 15 years old.
Yeah.
And God used me, the baby in her womb, to begin to change her heart, to bring her back to Him, and begin writing my story of what I'm doing now.
Well, and the power of prayer, just knowing that your grandparents prayed that over you, and just how
Yeah,
that full
absolutely.
circle moment of how God used that moment of them submitting and just praying over you and wanting the best for your life to bring an organization that is making a difference in Iowa and all over the United States for sure.
Definitely.
You know, just hearing that today and just hearing you bring that story out again, Carl, just reminds me of that day at the hospital. And obviously that memory and that image of it would be your great-grandparents that met us at the hospital and had their Bible and said, let's go have coffee. And they sat down with us and shared scripture. They prayed with us and over us. And of course, at that time, we didn't know all of the connections that we would learn about later. Yeah. But then fast forwarding, even as Carl said, when he was a little boy, once he understood the gospel, like he was like relentless about
On fire.
You cannot not share that gospel. And just this is a little bit related to Beauty Amidst the Ashes, but it is kind of the root of it, as Carl described. I clearly remember as a little boy that he would not let me avoid calling a neighbor that he wasn't sure whether or not she knew who Jesus was.
Oh my
And
gosh.
so I remember saying, absolutely, we'll ask her, we'll talk to her. He said, do it now.
Wow.
Oh my goodness.
Call her now.
My heart.
And
You see that too in
Yeah.
Carl's life even now of just how much he incorporates the gospel into who we are as Beauty Amidst the Ashes. That's our vision, is to spread the
Absolutely.
gospel and to bring full circle. That moment of adoption is love, and how he really just kind
Yeah.
of
I mean,
speaking
even
about
now
who
hearing
you
my
are,
mom
but-
talk and share it and just looking back and think about my story, just how all children are a gift from God.
Yeah.
Yes.
Psalm 139 says, "Before I formed you in the womb, I knew all about you, and I had holy plans for you." And I just want to say to the viewers watching, maybe you're in that process of adopting or looking to adopt. Right now, God has a plan for you. His eyes are on you. He's going to begin forming that baby, writing your adoption story. He's going to put holy plans into that child, just like you did with me, and something is going to birth there. So I want to encourage you, begin praying for that.
submitting to that. Yeah.
Look at the people in the Bible who are adopted. Moses.
Yeah.
Maybe Moses' mom, when she put him in that basket in the river, knew that he was going to be leading a whole nation,
Wow.
out of captivity. So begin praying for your future son or daughter.
the potential that they have
the potential
to
that they
be
have.
that.
Yes, absolutely.
For sure.
Oh my goodness. Thank you, Carl. I love just hearing this whole story and this passion and just kind of the principles and like what started Beauty Amidst the Ashes. And so with that, Diana, I'd love if you'd share with us some about what the mission and values behind Beauty Amidst the Ashes are.
Okay. Well, as Beauty Amidst the Ashes really pulled together as an actual nonprofit, one of the most important things that we worked to establish, and primarily I say we, but Carl was actually the one that was doing the work to make this happen, was creating the foundation.
Yeah.
So his goal was to have the foundation really built around, who we were and what our purpose was. And our vision definitely states that we exist to share the gospel of Jesus Christ and to educate and advocate for families and for individuals who are connected to adoption. And as doing that we are really bringing the hope of Christ to those families, to people that are connected to them, to the children.
And that's ultimately, too, what we want to do. That's really the heart of us as an organization. And, I always say to our staff and, oftentimes when I speak that, I believe that as we better grasp that adoption story in Christ and our adoption story of Christ adopting us, that we're going to better participate in the adoption stories of children. So that's really just the heart of our organization and who we are, is really bringing that forward and really hoping and wanting people to grasp that.
Absolutely.
And during that time too, advocating, breaking down, advocating, educating, equipping, like Diana said, is like advocating through our personal stories. Like even now, advocating, what is the most life-changing thing to share with somebody is your story. How did God work in your story through adoption, through foster care,
Stories
or
are
maybe
powerful,
your connection to it? How did he change your life? And if he changed your life, he can change yours too. And I think just letting that come full circle as we advocate is being very bold about our own personal stories. Mine in foster care, Carl's is being adopted as an infant, infertility, international adoption, all of those different things that, as a staff and as an organization, that we encourage that through advocating.
And even just going back to, Peggy, on, how we started as an organization. Like I didn't go to school for nonprofit, or I had no clue what I was doing when I started Beauty Amidst the Ashes. It was literally a step of faith.
And God called you.
And God called me. And I knew I had a story, that God had given me a story. So when we started BATA, that was literally it. We went into churches. Wow. We went on YouTube just sharing our story. And then from there, individuals would come up to us or contact us and share their stories.
And that's where community
and
was
then
built.
everything,
and we are very strong in.
And then we began building this community to where we are now. And it's just amazing. If God's calling you to something, just step out and he'll honor it for sure.
And Diana, you know a lot more about our education, but through our Hope, adoption conference, all the educators that we get and what we bring to the table. I mean, you come in contact with a lot, and how we educate our community.
Right. As Carl really developed the foundation of the vision and the mission of what we're going to do, one of the important things that we did as an organization was create 4 pillars. We call them pillars because they really were the 4 areas that we wanted our organization to serve in. And we came to a decision. I remember Carl saying, there's a lot of things we could do that would be helpful. There's a lot of things we could do that would be needed. But what we're going to do is focus on these 4 areas, and it has helped us to really sharpen who we are, to really create the type of an organization where we are able to actually do what we're doing and do it well. So the main pillars that we operate under are advocating, and then educating, and then equipping, and then supporting. Supporting. And so we have worked, in those 4 areas to find ways that we can meet needs for adoptive and foster care families, and for any, individuals, couples that are connected to that in any way.
And seeking education.
Yeah,
absolutely. And that's something that I know that Carl probably will share a little of the history of this, but Katie, one of the things that really happened in the early birth years of the organization was a lot of research.
Yeah.
So what we did was we contacted other people around the state who were connected to adoption and connected to some type of orphan care, or connected to foster care, and also just for life, pro-life. So we then met every month for a year long to just research, what's happening, what are the needs,
brainstorming together. I mean, one of the things that
we could see,
we saw when we first started BATA was all these amazing, incredible organizations around the state of Iowa doing amazing things, but a lot of them didn't know what the other one was doing.
Right.
So we began pulling these organizations together and brainstorming and visioning, talking about different needs together is one of the first things that we did when we first started BATA.
Absolutely. We even visited each other's organizations. Like, we would sometimes meet and go and see what is happening, and then how can we figure out really what are the needs for families. And also, it was a real culture, a real change in the culture that was happening connected to adoption and foster care at that time. And there was more, definitely more need that was being expressed from families. And for so many years, things were just more kept, unknown.
Yeah.
And so we were kind of at that time in the history of adoption and foster care here in Iowa.
And every single person who has ever researched adoption, and you type in adoption, what is adoption? It's unending and very like you lose yourself in all of this information without really any clarity. And so that's what when I first was looking into who Beauty Amidst the Ashes was and looking into an internship, that was something that was very clear. It was your 4 pillars, who you were, and then how you brought organizations that we partner with, but also ones that come to us, especially at the Hope Conference, all of our educators and exhibitors. It's one place where people can connect to what their needs are. What support do you need? What education do you need? What, it brings us together, because when you're looking and you type in adoption in Iowa, it's not going to be a clear, this is a good organization. This is some place that you would fit in. This is what goes with what you believe in or how you would want to go about adoption. But we have that here at Hope, and you can have one-on-one conversations. And that's something that's really special about Beauty Amidst the Ashes, is it's not just about us. We're not doing this as we are Beauty Amidst the Ashes and only. We bring in, very ethical, very, very honest organizations to partner with us to do and to bring about a community of adoption.
And education. Yeah.
Hey, Peggy, I have a quick question. So you are referencing Hope. For some of our viewers who maybe haven't heard of that or are newer to Beauty Amidst the Ashes, could you give a quick rundown of what Hope is? Yeah.
So Hope Adoption Conference is a place for individuals, families, churches. We had a lot of church groups coming this last year as well, to come and educate themselves and to find a community. I think there is, you might not be called to adopt, but we're all called to do something. You might not be able to have a child in your home, but you're called to do something. And if that just means educating yourself on statistics here in Iowa, on what are some resources that you can find. And then on top of that, just, there's children in need out there. How can we come alongside foster care and adoptive families and bring that community together? But we have exhibitors, we have people who have resources all throughout the day that have tables set up. We have main speakers who educate. We have all over the triad.
Worship.
So birth moms, foster, adoptive, international, and then on top of that, worship, and just bringing together that community of, hey, we're a community of adoption, but we are going to worship, and we are going to educate, and we are going to praise God for this opportunity, and we just use our voices to praise Him, but then also, bring about change and education to Iowa, and we are very thankful for that. And it is you've been there. It's like the highlight of my year now. It's I cannot wait for Hope 2020 and on. It's just something that I look forward to, and it's a really packed day of everything. And just this last year's teaching a session, it was really eye-opening for me about the people are hungry to learn.
And each year it gets bigger.
It gets bigger and bigger.
It grows year after
and
year.
Everyone gets excited and can't wait and is posting about it now, and it's still till November.
Everybody begins talking about.
Yeah.
It's like Christmas.
It is. For me it is. It really is.
Yes.
But just,
actually, the Hope Adoption Conference started in 2014.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So that was the first year of the conference,
and it originated out of that meeting with all those organizations.
Really,
one of the big things that we really came down to was there needs to be a place for education like that, a place for people to go and connect and meet and begin those friendships. So that was when we first really...
We wanted it to be a place where people could celebrate adoption.
And be
vulnerable. Educated, and also be encouraged. But it has really grown. I would say that one of the key elements now, after this will be year number 7, is that right?
Oh my goodness.
This will be year 7. Year 7 for the conference. And it's one thing to back up. It's always... we always have the conference during National Adoption Month.
Okay, which
month is November. And so we used to always hold it on National Adoption Day, which is the Saturday before Thanksgiving. We have changed that. We've moved it up 1 week. But we're in the month of National Adoption Month to celebrate that. But really a key element of the Hope Adoption Conference now is connection. We have absolutely seen the atmosphere that's been created, the just the spirit that is there, and the purpose behind it is for opportunities for people to connect, not only with the educators, with the keynote speakers, and with the organizations that come and have an exhibit, but really to connect with each other.
I love that.
And that is something that
Because they're supporting one
huge.
another through this journey, because, you know, when you're going through adoption and in the process, it is a very hard process to go through, and to have somebody who's either gone through it or is going through it with you is one of the most essential things that you can have. You don't feel like you have to do it alone. And that's how we may not as a staff be able to reach out to every single person in our community, but that's where we together are able to encourage each other, you know, families with families, individuals with individuals within their journey, or maybe a new perspective, you know?
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I love that community is just at the center of everything you guys do. That is so amazing. And if anybody else wants to learn more about the Hope Conference, there'll be posts on social media, on Facebook and Instagram, that you guys can stay up to date with to see how you guys can get involved for this next year. Okay, and then I also have a new question I was thinking of. Since you guys are talking about how this started, what was that like between Diana and Carl? Like, did you just come home one day and was like, hey, Mom, I have this great idea. Let's start an organization?
No, wow, that's a loaded question. Yeah, so starting an organization like this, I would say it's always something that ever since I graduated high school, I knew God was preparing me for some sort of ministry like this. And going back to working with YWAM, an amazing organization, huge advocate for missions, huge advocate for YWAM. YWAM really began preparing me for full-time ministry, for being a leader, taught me great leadership skills, you know, that I was able to bring in to be Amidst the Ashes. But, you know, there was one weekend that I can think of when actually my birth mom and then my mom and then my aunts all flew out to Denver, where I was at there with Beauty Amidst with Youth with a Mission, all came out to visit me, and we were out to eat one afternoon, and my aunt was just like, have you ever thought about starting a nonprofit, you know, centered around adoption and your story? And I said, yeah, actually I have, you know, like I shared earlier, you know, I'd been overseas working with orphans and just seeing that need and seeing what God was doing in my own adoption story and my passion for the gospel. And really wanting to advocate on behalf of that. So I think it was literally like the next day or something, went to Barnes and Nobles and got like some sort of book, like Nonprofits for Dummies. How to start a nonprofit, because I had no idea. And we began this process of filing for our 501c3 status as a nonprofit organization. And the first event that we really had was a bunch of my friends and staff members from YWAM come out to a house that we had rented one weekend, and we just sat and shared our adoption story.
That's amazing.
And you know, after that, everybody was like, "This is powerful. God's really doing something here." And they all came around us and laid hands on us and prayed for us. And we began to lay the foundation of who we were and what we wanted to be. And that's kind of how we started building. Everything just stemmed from our story to where we are now.
I love that.
At that event where Carl was referring to, that was really the first time that we had spoken publicly with all of us present. Myself and Carl, like he said, his birth mom, and then also Carl's dad, you know, was there. So the four of us were sitting on stools, literally, with this house full of people, and
people,
shared our
on the
stories
floor and everything. It was
and obviously very much an emotional moment for us, just being there and knowing. I mean, it was clear that God was doing something. We had no idea at that point, you know. Fast forward now to 2020, you know, what was really going to come from it. But we could see there was something in it. And I just had a thought that came to me now as you were sharing that, Carl, because that night after we shared our stories, and we really opened it up to questions, and we told these students, you can ask us, you know, whatever you want to ask us. You know, have you ever sat in a room where you've been with somebody that was adopted and their birth mom and their adoptive parents? And so it was a new experience for people. But at the end, when they were praying for us, one of Carl's fellow staff members at YWAM that prayed over us, he's actually going to be one of our keynote speakers this year at the Hope Adoption Conference.
That's cool.
Wow.
I think he even gave us a word from the Lord during that time for our organization.
He was really a huge encouragement. And so I didn't.
That's cool.
Yeah.
And I think that was really clear too, me coming on to staff in the past year. It's coming up on 2 years.
That's crazy.
That's crazy. It doesn't
How
feel
many
like
times
that.
have we fired you?
78 now. No.
Just
Now
kidding.
you're fired,
Inside
guys.
joke, everybody.
But no, just like realizing that like it was clear that the passion was there. You know, sitting down with Diana, I had literally come from working and I had been at the pool and I was so flustered and I'm thinking, oh, this is such a cool opportunity for me to, you know, get this and finally come full circle of like to do my passion. And to sit down with Diana, it was just like at that moment, it was like they are passionate, they share their stories, they're vulnerable, and they're going to make a difference, and I want to be a part of that. And it was very clear. And I think anyone who comes and is a part of our organization or meets us as a staff, that is the one thing that sets us apart as an organization, is that our passion is there. And when we speak with, you know, purpose, and we know that God has called us to do that. It doesn't make it easy. It's a very difficult path to do a nonprofit, but it is so worth it, and is something that each one of us do and make that the center of our life, is to build this community and to speak and be pro-life and be speak out towards adoption and foster care. But again, there was never a doubt in my mind meeting Carl, even though I was intimidated. Like, when I met Carl, I was like, what did I do?
Apparently I'm so intimidating.
Very intimidating. But just like realizing that how much of his heart was into this, and how much of everything that he was doing what came from his love and the gospel. And like Diana said, it was very clear right away. And there was something that drew me. And I am so thankful that they, you know, saw my potential and saw that I could do this as an organization. But then to be a part of it is something that it's changing Iowa, and it is going to bring change towards the system and just community, and just kind of bring that hope. You know, we really instill that hope of adoption and foster care and community. For sure.
Peggy, you couldn't be more right on with all of that. I think honestly one of the biggest things that drew me into your guys' organization is your story. One of my favorite quotes is that people forget your name and what you said, but they'll never forget your story. And I think that's such a testimony to what you guys do, and just promoting a community and a platform for people to share their story through advocacy. So going back to how you guys started, have you guys faced any challenges?
Oh, yes. I guess in thinking about that question, we've definitely had our share of ups and downs as an organization.
No organization would be without that.
You know, my dad always, you know, has said, if you don't encounter oppression, then you probably need to change direction. You know, and refigure out your calling on life. And if God's called you something, you know, sometimes he will make that hard. And I oftentimes, you know, will think of the story of Joseph in the Bible. Here God gave Joseph this dream and this promise, and he shared that, and people doubted him and they didn't believe him, you know, and then, you know, Joseph later, you know, is off and serving as a ruler of a country. And, you know, we've had people that, being a ministry leader and founder of our organization, I don't know where God's taken us. I'm just holding my hands open, and he's the one that leads and guides. You know, I can have a vision, but it's got to be from him. So that being said, you know, when it comes to challenges, we've had people that, you know, maybe have stepped in our organization and have wanted to go in a different direction, you know, than what we wanted to go, and you know, and now
so best for the organization.
Yeah, you know, what's best for the organization. So yeah, we've definitely had our share of ups and downs. I don't know if you want to add to anything along with that, or if you want to add to anything with that, but
no, not necessarily as far as the structure of the organization. But what I think has been one of the biggest challenges and really hard with any nonprofit is just the aspect of, you know, fundraising and doing it so that you have the opportunity. Some of the work we do, some of the projects we do, there are times when it's like Carl will make a comment, or somebody in the team will make a comment about, you know, we always wish we could do more. You know, and
that's
so
going to be no matter what comes
try
in.
to
We're always going to feel that way.
Yeah, we wish we had
maybe
a lot more every time we give away grants to our, and I know we'll probably talk a little bit about that project that we do with our adoption grant program, but pretty much every time we have a selection committee meeting and we're selecting grants, we always say, you know, oh, it'd be great if we could just, you know, have more, but yet we take ourselves back and we as a team remind ourselves we have to say God is totally directing us to the families that we are to be a part of their adoption story. God's providing what we're to use at this time, and
And they even
we
just
need to be thankful for that.
Yeah.
and understanding, like, you know, Carl as our founder does definitely bring us back to the point of what can we do more? We need that pressure, and we need that push of like, what can we do more as an organization? How can we, you know, bring in different options for fundraising? How can we reach out to church and church members, and how can we do more? Because ultimately, if you are not able to adopt, but you are able to give financially, you're able to educate, you're able to spread the word, donate, you know, silent auction items, or bring a voice into it. That's what, as a nonprofit, that's what we do. You know, we fundraise, and that's something that we support other families. But on top of that too, though, like she said, bringing it back from, yes, this is how we can stretch, but what did God give us now? And what a big blessing, like how undeserving we are, but how much he has given. You know, he gave us, even just this last grant period, there was a special story that connected us with our grant session, and I won't say names, but basically that personal story was brought to me, and that family gave money to our grant program. And that was something so powerful and so impactful. And they cannot understand that as a staff, seeing that and seeing that impact that they made encouraged me. And I know as a staff, it encouraged me so much to be like, when I doubt, God is doing things in the background that I can't even imagine. I can't.
And that goes
put
back to what I
words.
said about just holding your hands open and saying, God, like, this is your organization.
He's working, and
you
we have to
founded
let
it.
him.
You gave us this passion and this vision. If you want to see it come to fruition, we're going to hold our hands open, and you're going to bless that. And there's been many times where we don't know, you know, how it's going to play out, and God just comes through. You
Meeting
know,
people in lines, connecting through this person to this person in this group. It just, God will open the doors when he sees fit, and all we have to do is put ourselves out there, be vulnerable, and tell our stories, and that's what we do. And through fundraising, he has blessed us immensely. But I think too, a challenge, like I said too, is being vulnerable.
Absolutely.
And using our, like, you know, when you're standing in line somewhere, you're going about something, and I'm wearing a Beauty Amidst the Ashes shirt, I'm not thinking that, hey, I'm a representation of my organization. But
so if you're watching and you have BATA merch, make sure you wear it in public.
start a conversation. But just like realizing that, like, those are opportunities for me to make a difference every single day of my life. It's in every single opportunity, not just as Beauty Amidst the Ashes, but sharing my story, but just taking that challenge of like, every single day I have to be vulnerable and resubmit that, and, you know, let God use that brokenness of adoption and foster care. You know, it is beauty, but there is lots of brokenness in it. And I think that's the challenge too, is like resharing that trauma and that brokenness, and maybe that vulnerability sometimes is hard. But as an organization, we've been very quick and very, you know, to keep each other accountable and be like, hey, are we being vulnerable? You know, health issues, family issues, situations,
like
life, busy.
A big family.
Yeah, we
Our
really are.
staff just
This year, our theme actually for the Hope Adoption Conference is the faith journey.
Absolutely, yeah.
So, honestly, that really is
peek
the
right
theme.
there.
The story of BATA is a
It's really
faith journey.
the story of BATA, because it is.
Stepping
it's
out in faith,
journey.
and it's been a lot of trial and error. It's been a lot of great victories and a lot of defeats. You know, thinking about that question too, before you can build anything, you have to lay a foundation.
Yeah.
And that foundation has to be solid before you can build. And our vision, you know, even when we first started to now, has changed several times. And I had a leader, you know, who's really close to me, guy I worked with on staff with Youth with a Mission, Peter Warren. If you're watching this, shout out to you. But he always said, if you have a crack in your foundation, you got to take apart that foundation and repair it, and then start building upon that. And there came a place, you know, 2 years into our organization, a year into our organization, where we had to do that. You know, our foundation was cracked. Our vision was changing a little bit. You know, God was taking us into a different direction than what we thought we were maybe heading. And we had to come together as a team and say, all right, what's God doing? What do we need to repair in our foundation? And because we did that, we are now able to build what we are now, you know.
And then ultimately coming to that foundation of this is who we are, and really sticking to that, and then being known for that.
And then ultimately,
but you know, keeping that vision of the 4 pillars, you know, advocate, educate, and equip. The gospel is our forefront, sharing stories and community. And then now, obviously, a podcast, and that's what came from that, you know. So our vision can change, you know, our opportunities change, but we we were founded in the gospel and sharing our stories in community, and using that to impact Iowa and the United States now through our grant program, for sure. So
Peggy, I love how you're just sharing how this organization is growing, and just seeing you guys thrive and try new things like this podcast. So Peggy, could you share with us a little bit how you've seen BATA grow since it's been founded, and since your past 2 years of being a part of them?
Yeah. I mean, I came in I'll share a little bit too of an outside source is my dad, coming home and, them knowing, and I'll share in my story in another episode. But my dad, I laid out all the graphics of who Beauty Amidst the Ashes was. And I was like, look at this. This is an answer to prayer for my life. Wow. I knew right away when I met with Diana and the connection that we had in that moment. And then to see it grow even now of just like the bond that we have as a staff and the stretching opportunities that I've had through it. But ultimately, just like the change really has been, how can we do more?
Yes.
That's always what we're doing as a staff is what can we do more to serve the community? What can we do more to spread the gospel? And I think that's really the change that I've seen these past 2 years is that we started here, but we weren't like, we're not going to stay stagnant. We're not going to stay here. We're not going to be content. We're going to keep, we're going to, with what God gave us, but we're going to keep pushing to make more difference, a bigger difference and more opportunities that opened up, going on the news channels, going on radio stations, advocating for the kids, because this isn't about us. We share our stories, but it's not about our stories. It's about what God has done through them and the beauty and the power and the brokenness of adoption. And if we're vulnerable and do that, even through
and God's word, I mean, he says in his word, that's how we overcome.
Yeah.
God's word says we overcome by the blood of the Lamb, which is the gospel,
Yeah.
and the word of our testimonies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just seeing that, like, we've developed that vulnerability as a staff, even just like coming into 2 years, like me, not really, I mean, I would share the basics of my story, but my trauma was off limits. But then as I would talk to Carl, things would come up and we would relate and we would talk about it and it would come through. And like me being a speaker at the conference, hearing Carl even open up on stage and cry and just like really
Such a crier.
and just really be vulnerable. That was something that was so
Big,
special.
tough guy, outer shell, and then tender heart.
It's the beauty of adoption and just sharing that part of him and seeing that in all of us and the opportunities and the different parts that have grown with the infertility and seeing so much in our community growing through that, the infertility battle. And I had no clue what that was. And hearing Diana and some of the ladies in that community that have come through has been so powerful for me to listen to. Birth mom, all of that. We're growing our community. And that's really this 2 years of blown up for me.
And not just growing
like,
our community. I think God has grown all of us individually as well. I mean, I'll be honest. I know one of the biggest things when I started BATA was I was a single guy, and I'm like, God, you're calling me to this organization to advocate for family, to advocate for adoption,
and I'm a single Pringle.
And I'm a single dude, and it was literally through our organization that I met my insanely smoking hot, beautiful wife. Shout out to my wife. Literally, it's through our organization. We had our first Beauty Amidst the Ashes fundraising event, and my wife was there.
And we wish she could be here because she has and we will have her definitely on the podcast, is just share her part. Because she might not be the forefront of everything, but she is that
she's the backbone
of, all of us in communication and can really give that to us. And,
but I saw
and does
her.
a lot with the grant work, too.
Saw her at our banquet. I don't even remember anything about that night except for this hottie sitting right in the front row.
Goodness.
And just began talking to her. So we met through our organization. Who would have thought, because of my faithfulness to start BATA. I meet my wife and have two beautiful little girls. And God's really just taught me so much about his Father's heart for me, and being a dad, that I've been able to carry that into my organization. And we have another number 3 in the cooker on the way.
First podcast, new baby.
First
it's
podcast,
so
new baby due in October, and we're excited about that. But it's amazing to have a vision and to be serving that vision alongside of my wife, who literally is the backbone of the organization, handles a lot of the donor relations, donor receipts,
Diana.
keeps me in check. And my little girls, you're a godmother to one of them, but they're definitely a part of our organization. It's awesome to serve the Lord with a family, behind me that's pushing me and encouraging me. And Grayson, she's only 2 years old and she knows what Daddy does, and
so cool.
we'll come in and say, "Daddy working, I work too,"
Oh my goodness!
Reagan's turning 1, and
Reagan's turning 1, and baby number 3 is.
And we are a family, even my family, even though we live a little ways away, like even my family, just like having that connection to this is like, adoption is a connection, and them seeing me be incorporated and knowing that I'm like within the organization that I'm in, it's like a family, and them coming to Hope, and them coming into Hope Conference and just being like sitting there listening to Carl and listening to me and seeing that this was something that obviously God had placed for me in my life to be a part of. And it was very clear, and it was a very full circle moment for them. And to see but then that's also other families too,
Absolutely.
that are seeing that when they're coming in there, they're not just a member of an organization. They're not just a donor. You're changing lives,
family,
and you're part of our family. And, that's not cliche. That's honest. We care. And you reach out onto our Instagram, our Facebook with a prayer request. We have that multiple times. And even through our community groups, Diana and I continually, she's probably definitely a way better connector and communicator than I am, but she, just like having those groups and connecting with stories and loving the people and like,
and there's so much behind the scenes too with our organization that we don't even make quote unquote publicized about those behind the scenes,
because they are personal stories and
connections in those groups, and we want to hold those so high that we don't want to bring them into, hey, we do this too as an organization,
because that brings prayer and tears, but then it also again bring unending joy, when we get those text messages, those announcements that, or hey, God is doing this in our lives right now, and we wanted to share that with you, and how BATA.
Absolutely. And it's important, like one of the real things that we value very highly as an organization is honoring those that are connected to us. And that is twofold. We really seek to honor anybody who is connected to us as a donor or a supporter in any way. And so whatever we do, whatever words we speak, however we represent ourselves, however we put ourselves out there on social media, however we present ourselves at an event, we are seeking to really honor those who are donating and the way that they are giving to us. And then the second part of that is that we always seek to really honor anybody that is connected to us, as you described. We have to have a very high standard of integrity because we do not want in any way, shape, or form to ever let that value drop.
And to be bold with those values, though. I think sometimes that it's, when you're talking about trauma, you are talking about individual. It affects people differently.
Yes. Absolutely.
But also being vulnerable.
Very personal.
Very personal. And when we
individual to each person.
And that's even written in our community values too, as an organization, on who we are and who we want to be. We ultimately love God, and then His second commandment to us is to love others.
Yeah.
So we want to love God well, and we want to love others well. We want to respect how we treat others and hold them high,
and being bold to who
and
God,
hold those
what
relationships
God has called
high.
us to do, and that sometimes does make we do want to respect others, but then sometimes our stories can stretch others, and we don't ever want to we don't ever want to offend anyone, but we definitely do want to bring out bold parts of our stories and the brokenness and the trauma, and to share that part of us.
We have to be real
and be real.
Yes.
If we are not real, people are going to forget us really quick.
And sin is supposed to make
and
us
they're
uncomfortable.
going to look away to something
really
else
is.
because people want.
We want to be raw.
They want
Adoption's
real
messy.
truth.
The gospel's messy.
I love
But
that.
they also want people that are going to have such a deep heart of compassion and care that there will be that underlying kindness and respect that never is forgotten. And so we consider that really important. And that's one really important thing that Carl does for us as an organization. He brings those community values back to us, and reviews those with us, like at board meetings. And we don't take that lightly. Because we want to always be reminded of those.
Yeah.
Live that way.
Going back to those, we want to, I'm just reading them off here. We want to communicate everything we do, in love and in honor and in truth, taking everything back to the truth of God's word. He's given us His word as a tool, and it's living and active, and it is truth, ultimately taking people back to that, the truth of the word, displaying integrity in all things that we do, showing professionalism in all things that we do. We want to continue to learn. You could probably speak into this, Peggy, but adoption is always changing. Everything around adoption is changing. Everything around foster care, orphan care, it's all changing. So we got to constantly be learning and educating ourselves.
And I think speaking to that too, I
to
think
be able to
sometimes when
advocate
people
that
think,
well.
when they think about adoption, they think it's like the final, like you're signing the papers, you're adopted, everything's okay. And I think that too is bringing up the fact that adoption doesn't just end with being, you're growing as a person, and you're learning more and more about how to handle trauma and adoption, and growing in that. What does that look like in your life? How is the gospel going to be and work in your life as Christ grows you? And I think that seeing that in the change that we have, that changes how we look at life and how we speak to people and how we look at people is that God's not finished with us yet. He's still growing us. He's growing us as an organization. He's growing us as people.
Yeah.
And as long as we're vulnerable, as long as we're bold, and as long as we're being submitting to him,
Yeah.
he's going to do exactly what he has called, is going to do, and his will is going to be done if we submit
absolutely.
to that.
Yep.
You know, what you guys are all talking about right here is not just your adoption story, but like how adoption is a lifestyle. And I love that. I remember that being talked about at Hope 2019. And I just love that so much. I think that's so true to your guys' hearts and what you guys are saying. So with that, could you guys tell us more about Hope? Diana, you touched a little bit earlier on the history of Hope. Could you tell us more about the history and what your dreams and hopes are for Hope?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay.
Bigger and better.
Bigger and
Absolutely.
better.
Well, as I
Building,
said,
building.
it's an annual conference, and it's held in Central Iowa.
Okay.
At this point, we're doing it one time a year in one location. A dream to share would be we dream about simulcasting. We dream about doing multiple locations, taking the conference and putting it into another city, another location, and doing something with it. The heart of the conference really is, as I described, connecting, creating that connection place. But what our goal is, every year we are working to increase the value that is there for people that come. We want them to know that when they attend the conference, they're going to get the value that makes it worth their time. People are busy, and it's hard to schedule things in people's lives. And so we want it to be a conference that is so important, so packed with value that it becomes a priority. It's a family conference. Some people come with their children, some people don't. One thing that is unique this year that I think we're seeing more of is people are bringing their extended family. Some of the families that are adopting or fostering or going through an infertility journey, they're bringing members of their own family, like their parents or some grandparents of the kids with them, so that they can get more education and be more equipped to be parenting and to be supporting each other. So we want it to be that type of an experience for people where they're going to be bringing more and more. We also are really targeting this year more people that are working with kids in other areas. It's not just in the family that people are working with kids that are in foster care or adoption. It's in the classroom. It's in sports, in different
The
events
supporting
like
roles
coaches.
in your family.
Absolutely, and so we are purposely inviting like school nurses, educators, superintendents to come. And this year we're not done with our planning, but we're at the point where we're putting together a really exciting list of educators that are going to be
Qualified
able
and
to
educated. Very
come
much.
and bring experience and qualifications that will really punch up even another level. In addition to that, we want people that are going to be inspiring and motivating, families. And so we are always looking to do that. We have the conference in Johnston, Iowa.
Okay.
So it's a central location there. And we open up registration for the conference usually at the middle to end of the summer.
End of August.
And so that's all on our website.
Okay. I can't wait. I
I
hope
know.
It's gonna be
everybody.
exciting.
It gets bigger and better.
Each year it grows. I think the first year we did the conference, I think we had like 9 breakout sessions, and this year we have over 25.
Yeah.
So just
Wow.
each year it just keeps bigger and expanding. But like Diana
From
said,
all
my mom
parts of the
said,
triad, for sure.
we definitely want to take what we've built and continue growing and expanding that to where we are simulcasting the conference or building that in different locations around the U.S. So that's something that we're brainstorming about and talking about, and we'll see what God does with that. So
I'm getting so excited already for next year.
Thank you for
It's
volunteering
exciting.
every year.
Oh my goodness,
Yes.
I love
Honestly,
it.
we
I would
are
have
I'm
missed
thankful
it.
for our volunteers.
We
Very
operate
grateful
with
for our
about
volunteers.
25 volunteers every year at the conference.
Yeah.
And it's because of people like you that make a difference, because it takes a whole team of people to
and
be
you
able
catch
to
the
put
vision
together.
of BATA and what we're doing.
It's
and
contagious.
Believe in it.
Conference.
Yeah,
It
absolutely.
It really is.
Yeah.
It really is.
Yeah, I love it. I love the whole difference maker, world changer kind of attitude that you guys have towards this. It's really is contagious and makes people want to jump in and get involved. So with that, what are some of your guys' needs to keep Beauty Amidst the Ashes going? What can people do?
Educate themselves. I always say, we want to jump into, obviously as a nonprofit we fundraise, but ultimately educate yourself. If that's coming to Hope, if that's, reaching out to us, the one thing that we can do is knowledge is power. And so if we educate ourselves, we will ultimately be able to better help and love the children in the system. That is why we do what we do. We want to love the kids. And if we can educate ourselves and we can be better at that, then also, even if you're not called to have a child in your home, you're still called to do something. James 1:27.
Whether that's giving financially and making a donation to our organization. I mean, we literally cannot do Beauty Amidst the Ashes without our faithful donors that come behind our organization and allow us to continue moving forward and continue growing.
Mm-hmm. And people think that could look like a big amount of money. That could simply be skipping coffee once a week.
Yeah.
What is that? $5 a coffee from Starbucks. Add that up at the end of the month. That makes a difference in the life of a child and for us as an organization.
And ultimately,
better cause.
Just the power of prayer.
Yeah.
Yes.
I start crying. Where's the Kleenex box? We would not be where we are as an organization if it wasn't for the faithful prayers of people.
Yes.
Because it hasn't been an easy road. It's been a road full of ups and downs. Mm-hmm. But people have continued to pray for us, gone to the Lord in prayer, sent us scriptures that the Lord has put on their heart.
Wow. Texted us in very vulnerable times in our lives to say, hey, I'm praying for you. This has been so powerful.
Yeah, and not even as an organization, just when one of us is down or discouraged. I mean, even you have sent me numerous texts say, hey, keep going, let's keep going. Let's keep, because we can hit that place of just, all right, where are we going next? Or we're trying to figure things out. But having those prayer warriors behind us, continues to keep us going. And
because James 1:27 does say, pure and undefiled religion before God is this, to care for the orphans and widows in their distress. And for me, that is one of the most important things that we can do as an organization is care for them. But that means we're going to face opposition from Satan, because he does not want us to succeed. Mm-hmm. If we care for the children and we ultimately stand pro-life and value all life and at its form of conception all the way until life and make sure that is valued, then we are doing something different than the world. And he wants to make sure that is not accomplished. And so I think that we face opposition and in our lives to keep going, because it is exhausting. It is opposite of the world. It is constantly being, doors closed, people, and it's just something that we as an organization have to be really on guard in our personal spiritual life, is to say, like, no, this is what God has called us to do, and we will be bold, and we will value life, and we will continue to do that and encourage each other to do that as well. And that's something that obviously builds us closer together and as a family and as an organization, and then also to be able to do what we do with excellence, and that's what we all are striving to do, is to be BATA, but to be excellent in what we do.
Peggy mentioned education, and Carl really talked about really prayer, which is really encouragement. But another word that comes to me is just engage, like what people can do to engage in something that is helping to care for orphans. And we have a small booklet that Carl put together for churches that just helps them know what are some simple ways that a church or a community, because as Carl mentioned, the quote that he had about, once you better understand your own adoption story spiritually and grasp that, how that will have an impact on what you do to make a difference in the lives of kids. Well, honestly, one of the things that people can do is become engaged in some way. Yeah. And whether it is just reaching out to somebody that is fostering and doing something simple to help them, or whether it is doing something large like donating. One thing that's really awesome, we've had some people that have have a history, like a family member who's had a history of being a foster parent. So sometimes these things are so powerful to me. Like maybe, your grandma or your parent was a foster parent and lived their life serving that way. Yes. And then when they pass and, family members or friends that were connected to them send us a memorial donation in memory of that person. Yeah. I think that's really powerful. I mean, that is one way. I honestly think that one of the ways of the future that we will see, in addition to just the donations that people make monthly or the sponsors that we have business-wise, I think people, as they start to become active as families, like, families that would say, let's, as a family, do this for Christmas, where we are giving a gift to an organization like this, or that will make a difference because it'll train, their
younger
children as
generation.
they're growing up,
Yeah.
what is important and putting value to that. So that is one thing I would say that people can do, is look for ways to be engaged.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and that's a gift that's changing somebody's life. What better gift could you give them?
Just get involved.
Yeah.
Whatever that looks like, through prayer,
it doesn't be
giving,
on a huge scale. It
volunteering.
can
Just get involved.
Yeah, I love that there's something for anybody can do, whether you're a single Pringle, like how you started, like Peggy
single
said,
Pringles.
or whatever stage of life you are. I love that.
Yep.
So could you tell me more about like the adoption grant and what that consists of and that
Who's taking it?
process?
It is an adoption grant. It is obviously something that God has really given us a heart for, and something that sets us apart.
It's a program that really was developed over time. And Peggy's right. It really, is an opportunity for us to do something as an organization that obviously we had a goal for, spent time developing the program, and the purpose being to be able to come alongside families that were in the process of adopting, and to aid with one of the biggest hurdles, which is often finances.
Adoption.
There are other hurdles, but that's a huge one.
Adoption comes with a cost. God paid the ultimate cost for us in adopting us.
Yeah, He did.
And to give us a family, and we want to be able to come side of adopting families and breaking down that financial barrier, and bringing hope to them and say, we want to walk with you in this journey of adoption. So we've built our adoption grant program that provides financial aid for those adopting families, and coming alongside of them and walking through that journey with them. And then ultimately going to the church and individuals and saying, hey, will you give to this? Will you be a part of an adoption story and play a part in giving this? And I just think of the gospel when I do that. I mean, as somebody, sharing my faith, I want to see people come to know the Lord. I want to see people join that family of God. And when you give to our adoption grant, you are literally seeing children come into those families and join with those families.
Because one of the things
it's a reflection of the gospel.
The things that we do and within our adoption grant application when you apply is, what is your faith statement? And that is what we still instill the gospel and our viewpoint on the gospel and how the gospel is instilled in the adoptions of each child. We still require that within our grant program, is that we know that these children are going into homes that are going to teach them and give them that safe space, but also the gospel. And that is important to us, is we want to make sure that is instilled in them. And that's something that people are always encouraged to hear, is that we do have that fund to simply be, you want to provide a safe, forever home for a child that is gospel and has the gospel in it and is loving and is going to give them that safe space to heal, or maybe just to grow and to learn and to become the potential that they will have and become, and the adults that they will go to do more.
I think we can all say, and everybody watching, is, God has designed family, and it's one of the most valuable, cherished, most important things that He's given us.
It's one of the main things that's under attack from the world is family.
Yeah, you're totally right on
and
that.
Everything comes out of that place of the family. So with children all over the world growing up without the love of a mother and father and people and individuals, families, couples stepping out in faith and saying, we're going to do something about this. We want to be a part of that. Our organization wants to dive in.
And bringing that brokenness and breaking, sin should break our hearts. It should make us uncomfortable. Yep. And when we are uncomfortable, we do more. We'll step out and do more, and that's what the grant program does. Is you can do more, and that's giving financially, small amounts, big amounts, however God leads you to do it. But you're still going to make a difference in the life of a
Since
child.
the end of 2017 to current day, we've been able to, by God's grace, really, and blessing, we've been able to give 26 families. Have been able to receive a grant from our organization.
That's amazing.
From our donors. And one thing to mention, once families are selected as recipient families, we stay connected with those families, and we are working to build a community within that group to support each other. And so that's exciting to see. And then their stories then become encouragement to others who are maybe on the outside looking in and watching. And so we are really thankful for, that and that opportunity. One real quick thing I'll say, and this has kind of become something that we often say when we're doing it. It's one of the best things we do. It's one of the hardest things we do, because you have to say no to people
Who are
and
deserving.
Who are very deserving.
and then others you get to say, you were selected.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
so,
Wow.
but if we weren't doing it, we wouldn't have that opportunity. So we're very thankful for that, and it is
And we always encourage people who
big
maybe
blessing.
weren't selected at that time or that during that grant period to reapply. Each grant period looks different as an organization, and we look at each and every one of those applications. We sit down and we go through the paperwork, we read the stories, and some we cry and we pray and we think about it. And I can think of several families within those grant periods that I still have on my mind and still come to mind as just being changed by their
And
story.
many of them we talk to now, like we're a part of their story now.
And share, later in the podcast, you'll hear from a lot of them and how God has equipped them and how specifically that money. And when they share that, it's powerful. When you hear that, how did that money, that grant money, go to specifically bringing that child home for them or in the process of coming home?
So I have an important question. How do you give and how do you apply?
Yeah.
How do you?
Who's going to take the gift?
I love how we keep
Because
looking.
we all know.
Well, you apply on our website.
Okay.
Yeah.
On the website, we have all the places to go to read the qualifications, to find the application, and then families complete it, and they put together a packet, and then it does include references that they then have to send out to people to return to us.
We have all the
so-
guidelines and all
yeah.
the information there.
And so it's all through the website.
It's very clear. Very clear and precise. And then to give, that looks like going online onto our website at beautyamidsttheashes.com, and you can go to the Give tab, and it will have an opportunity for you to give to the Hope Grant Fund, and then also a separate one for us as an organization, which is two separate funds, which if you specifically feel like this money and this blessing should go to a child, that is there. And then also if you feel like you would like to encourage us as a staff and also equip us, that's one way, is to do it to our organization as us. And it still goes directly to supporting us to do the work that God has called us to do.
Yeah, and through our adoption grant program, we actually started the Hope Project, which is an amazing giving program that benefits our adoption grant. And so if your church wants to get involved in playing a part of an adoption story,
It's kingdom
and
work.
it's kingdom work. It's kingdom mindset and giving to a family. Your church can take on the Hope Project, raise money as a church that will specifically go to a family that's adopting, that'll help bring a child into that family. Or if you're even a Christian artist, and you're on the road and you want to take the Hope Project out on the road and advocate on behalf of families and children, you could
small
do
group,
that.
a women's group, VBS. We that really seeps into a lot of things. The Hope.
We want you involved. Yeah, we want individuals involved.
I love the community you're building. Wow, I've really enjoyed this. I have one more question for you guys. So what has been the biggest blessing as far as being a part of Beauty Amidst the Ashes, would you guys say?
Go for it, Peggy.
For me, is to be able to share my story and to see that when I share my story, more people are willing to share theirs. And that's something that as a former foster youth and an adoptee, I see that just hearing different people who even came to my seminar and I met with coffee later, of just being like, hearing you tell your story and just like being vulnerable about how hard it is to share that trauma and that situation that you went through. Being willing to do that makes me want to do that too. That's the best thing that honestly I can hear as a former foster youth. If I can enable somebody to have the strength to share what they went through and to heal, that is what I've been called to do, and that's what I want. And I'm still young and I'm still learning, but it's one of the biggest blessings to be able to use my platform to make a difference. Kingdom mindset is important to me. It's not about me. It's about what God wants to do in my life, and that's what Beauty Amidst the Ashes does. It's not about us as an organization. It's about our community, and it's about the people that we touch. And if my story can touch other people, then I'm going to keep sharing it. It's going to be hard. And sometimes it's very hard for me to share that. And I'll share that in another episode about my story, but it's being vulnerable like that. It's hard, and it's hard for all of us. But I'm going to keep doing it because it is one of the biggest blessings in my life, is to be vulnerable and to see other people then step up and be vulnerable too.
I love that. Oh my goodness.
I guess for me, Katie, one of the biggest blessings for me personally is that 36 years ago when or even back before that, actually 40 years. This will be our 40th anniversary, wedding anniversary this year, that my husband and I will be celebrating. But our personal story was infertility and foster. We were foster parents for 2 years, and then adopting. And we were starved for connection. Yeah. We wanted that. We were looking for, not only for us, but for our family, to have that opportunity to connect with others. And it just wasn't there. And it was something, that we were looking for. And now to be a part of this, obviously, I can maybe give insight looking back to those who are experiencing it now, but those who are experiencing it now and being able to connect with them and see what these opportunities that Beauty Amidst the Ashes and the Hope Adoption Conference and the Adoption Grant Program and now the podcast, what they are doing for these families and these individuals, for me to be able to see that is an amazing blessing.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. Especially with your story of being a mom and adopting and just seeing what it's all come into fruition. So cool.
For sure.
Yeah, for me, it's all about the kingdom of God, and it's all about His glory and the gospel. Ultimately, I want people to grasp the gospel. I want to see people come to know the Lord, as their Savior, and then advocate or do whatever out of that place. For me, it's walking this vision out with the Lord. It's holding my hands open and saying, God, like, you've put this in my hands. You've given this to me. How can I use it for your glory today? And if it's not of God, we push it to the side. It could still be a good thing, maybe, but we push it to the side and we say, God, we want to know your heart, and we want to advocate on behalf of that. And then it's ultimately my family. They're everything. I wouldn't be where I'm at if it wasn't for my wife and my girls. 2 little girls, they're my backbone. They keep me going. They keep me in check. They push me to be a better man, to be a better ministry leader. So that's it. Yeah.
A blessing. And it's a blessing to be a part of an organization that is so family oriented.
Yeah.
Through each other and through adoption.
Thank you so much for just inviting me to be here and be a part of your guys' family.
Yeah,
we're excited to have you on the board now,
Katie.
Katie.
I'm so excited.
So excited.
You guys made my whole month.
Good. I'm so glad. You get a T-shirt and you get a mug.
And you get to be with us more.
And you get to be with us more. Yeah.
So excited.
Yeah. So we just want to say, man, if you're watching, just thank you so much for watching this and hearing a little bit of our story and our heart. We're excited to share that with you. And we just want to say thank you to you. If you're watching, thank you for watching this. If you're praying for us, thank you for praying for our organization. Thank you for giving to our organization. Thank you for supporting what we do. This is just the beginning. I said, like we've said through all this whole segment, this whole episode, our hands are open. This is just the beginning, and we're excited to continue walking that journey.
And
please
to be a voice for adoption.
And be a voice for adoption.
Now we have a way to, all across the United States, be a voice for adoption for the gospel. And we are very grateful for that and for you to listen to our stories.
So hit that subscribe button, hit that share button, share the podcast, share our website. More information about who we are as an organization can be found at our website. I think that will probably be in the comments below. But thank you so much for joining us.